Everyone in e-commerce is playing the same game. Pour money into Meta, chase ROAS, make the numbers work. Our next guest looked at all of that and said, no. Ryan Babenzien built Jolie, the filtered showerhead company you've seen all over your feed, into a 9-figure brand, profitable from day one, barely any meta spend, and never discounting once. So how do you build a 9-figure brand without the playbook that everyone swears by? Well, you wrap trucks and send them through New York. You put your product in thousands of people's hands with no script, and you let the customers do the selling. Oh, by the way, Ryan's done this before. He built Greats, sold it to Steve Madden, and then tore up the playbook he helped write again. His whole thesis? Meta is a trap. Brand is the last real moat, and the stuff you can't measure is the only stuff worth betting on. Today, he shows us how.
Ryan, super happy and grateful to have you on the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So one of the things I've always loved about your persona in e-commerce, just in general, is how much of a thought leader you are. Obviously we've met in person several times, but I also follow you on LinkedIn, and I constantly see your thoughts and your thought leadership on where the industry is, what works, what doesn't work. And so I guess just to kick this off, first question is, when you look at e-commerce today versus 5-10 years ago, what's fundamentally changed from your perspective?
Yeah, it is very different. I think the biggest difference, I would say, is sort of how the access to build an e-commerce business. Like, there are just so many tools available off the shelf that can get you sort of up and running and building a proper e-commerce business, picks and shovels, if you will, over time. When I started Greats in 2000 and it was end of 13, Shopify was brand new. It was sort of like you were making it was this new thing, and people are like, oh, you should still go. I can't even remember what the prevailing service provider was, Magento. And most people at the time were still saying you should build this on Magento. And it's stuff like that it's not even a consideration anymore. Like, nobody would even start an e-commerce business without Shopify. And there's a host of tools like that. So the speed and the efficiency you can get an e-commerce up and running, and just a smaller need of capital, right? This is sort of, you don't need millions of dollars to start a website. And in the early days of the internet, and I remember because I was there, it was like, people were charging hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million, to build a website. It was a Wild West environment. So, as the network has been built out, everything is, prices have come down for everything, for access to it. And that's sort of the biggest difference. There's a whole other version of that, though, with consumer side. Like, it's the norm, right? There's no sort of, I think the e-commerce world has normalized and is not as explosive as it was in the beginning. A couple of things have happened. E-commerce has been it's penetrated, and I'm talking about the US very specifically. So this might not apply every market around the world, but it's a norm. At the same time, over the 15 years, retail has corrected. So we lost 50, hundreds of thousands of retail stores over time. And now you're sort of this equilibrium of like, okay, the retail stores that are here are still valuable and meaningful. E-commerce is a part of the mix, but it's not growing in the way that it used to, right? So those are two big differences.
What do you think are the moats these days? Because when I look at e-com today, everyone is just super powered now with all the tools that are available. And those tools aren't even expensive to use, right? Like, you could get a Claude Max subscription, give one to everyone on your team, and everyone is just, Superman. From your perspective, what's the moat? To that same argument, there could be hundreds of thousands of new stores. It's not that complicated to get on a plane, get on a Cathay plane, come to Hong Kong, or go to the mainland, find a supplier. You can go to the Canton show, you can meet people. It's not rocket science. Obviously, running the business well, running it profitably, harder to do, but the tools in which, like you said, making a website, building a brand, it's not that difficult to get started.
Well, so this is what you just said, building a brand, not that difficult. And all the other stuff you were saying doesn't equate to building a brand. So the answer I have for this is sort of it. Brand and brand equity and which usually equates to outsized demand from a consumer without having to market and do all these big things. When you have a brand that's so good, of course everybody advertises, but it returns differently. So there is no edge anymore. Like you said, like there used to be people that were better at meta. There used to be all these hacks that you can do that allowed you to be more competitive. And I think those are less and less, maybe even none. But brand still matters, right? And this is sort of like in the analog world, pre-internet, it was building brand that made the most sense, and how you showed up in the store and what stores you were in and who was using your product and who was talking about your product. So we focus on brand like a lot. And when we looked at the space, it actually wasn't part of a thesis, but we realized after launching Jolie that the space we play in, one, it didn't exist, right? So there were filtering showers, products, like you said, go to the show in Canton and pick up a product. There was a ton of that shit. It
Of
lacked
course.
brand. So we wanted to make sure we had the brand part right. And then we realized that in the shower, like the number one shower company in the world, it's a US based company, $10 billion in revenue. Excuse me. The number one shower brand in the world wasn't recognized by the user. So we would post-purchase survey for the first 2 years. What did you replace your Jolie with? Most of the
No
market had
idea.
no idea. So
Yeah.
they are using this thing that is a massive company with no brand association at all. And that was like, we knew we were on the right path. We were going that way anyway, even if they all knew who they were replacing with it. But it was a pretty big discovery for us to realize that building brand in this space is going to matter over time.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I mean, to clarify, I guess the brand bit, any website is quote unquote brand, like the way we colloquially refer to e-commerce businesses, I guess, is brands, but maybe the real differentiator is like quality of the brand, like real brand versus just another drop shipper or small e-com person that doesn't really care about customer experience in that sense. Um, so that makes sense. Would you say brand is the ultimate moat?
I believe so. I mean, because if you build a brand, it means you're going to have momentum and awareness coming from other sources that are not paid for or engineered. And as I think we agree, when there's no edge in marketing from a paid standpoint, right? Like, content matters. So what the ad looks like, I think there's some art to advertising, and you could have a
Totally.
slight advantage. Okay. But other than that, like deploying and targeting and, this shit is like on autopilot, right? So that was
Even
not the
media buying.
case. Exactly. Like, if you use Tatari, you're going to get a decent like
Yeah.
outcome of your media buy.
No, Mark
Um,
Zuckerberg
that you
literally
10 years
said,
ago, but 10
yeah,
years ago, that was not the case, right? Like you actually had people with like a super skill that were better than others. And then they were just like athletes that were better. So that goes away. And now you're back to brand. And here's where I think brand really matters. And we think about this, it's our sort of core, how we launched, what we still do. Like we need word of mouth. Like all of this other stuff is equal, right? Like all of the paid stuff is equal. Like everybody has the same toolbox. I need other people to help support that. Those other people are consumers, right? Those are customers. Like they're doing the heavy lifting for me because they're referring, not in the, click this link and buy a Jolie referral, but they're talking about us in the real world. They are showing it digitally. Like I just got Jolie. Here's the results I've had over the last 2 weeks. All of that adds up. And that's when when you have, and I'll sort of put a finer point on this, when you have consumers that become advocates for your product, your brand, that's when you're probably going to get a competitive advantage over another version or a competitor that doesn't have the same loyalty from your fan base.
so where do you think most founders or brands, are wasting time and money right now?
Well, I think most founders are not building brands. I think they're like, let's just talk broadly in the consumer space.
Sure. Yeah.
I shouldn't say most, that's unfair. There's great brands in e-commerce, but I think a lot of what from where you are, right, where you guys are, you're in Asia, we just see shit coming out of there all the time. It's just like another, they just slap a logo on it and off they go. They buy it off the
That's kind of what
shelf
I'm
and
saying.
yeah, but that's always going to be there. That's going to be part of the market forever because e-commerce is easy to sort of spin up. And now this distribution channel doesn't have a financial barrier to entry that it once did. And that's going to be part of the market in everything. And there's no way you can get around that. But the bigger winners are the guys that are building brands. And what do I think founders are doing wrong? I think the market continues to overinvest in paid marketing, specifically on Meta. I just don't. I've never supported Meta to the way the market does. I am an outcast in my peer set about how my
You
opinion on
totally
Meta,
are.
how we use Meta. Like it's all, everybody just thinks there's opportunity, and I'm like, there isn't. If there was, I'd take it. I'm not a, you know, I'm actually agnostic to channels. If it worked better, I'd spend more there.
No, and this is, I mean, we're getting to the crux of why I wanted to chat with you in particular.
I knew this is where you wanted to go.
Because you, like, the way I see it right now, especially as the market of founders gets younger and younger, I'm talking like 20 to 25-year-old first time founders that are young blood, super high energy, able to work late hours. Like, from what I see, the strategy is now who can find the lowest break even ROAS. Like people who are going out and say, hey, I can make a profit at a 1.5 ROAS or something. And this whole notion, I don't know if you've heard it, but it's been talked a decent amount about, which is like natural CAC, which is like, the CAC is what it is, just make it work. Whether it's raising prices or upsells or bundling. And it's basically a race to the bottom. Brands that are saying, hey, 1.5 ROAS, I mean, you're giving over 50% of your margin away, 60%, more to marketing.
It's absolutely crazy to me. And this new terminology of natural CAC is a derivative of Meta. It's basically saying the market has said, I don't say this, but this is what that audience says. Hey, we're just going to have to pay the piper. This is the fucking tool for Meta.
Exactly.
And they view it as the only way. It's the only road for them, right? That's the difference between a 25-year-old spinning up a thing, trying to sort of engineer this outcome. And they'll grow revenue. It's just the revenue grows, the profit goes down. They don't understand where the end of that is. I do, you do, others that have done it do. So let them work fucking 100 hours a week. In the end, they're going to have absolutely nothing because they won't. What do they like? They have a revenue machine with less and less profit as it scales. They can't sell that, or they could, but it would be like, not really all that interesting to the market. Who buys it? Again, like
Is that just a glorified dropship brand?
Yeah, of course. And there's nothing wrong with a dropship brand if you can get the economics to work. Like I'm not criticizing the model. Yeah. I'm saying it usually doesn't work. It just doesn't. Even if there's like lightning in a bottle for a moment, it doesn't last very long, right? Like how do you scale those things? I haven't seen it. If we've seen it, it's sort of the anomaly that everybody talks about. Like one guy did this out of 1 million and it's like, yeah, sure. I don't like those odds of trying to replicate that, but sure, I guess it's possible.
So if you were starting Jolie today from scratch, would you take the same playbook that you took?
I wouldn't change it's not that I wouldn't change a thing. It was obviously
but
small
largely
things, but yeah. And I give that advice every day. Like anybody that wants to be like, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, I sort of just share my philosophy on how to build it. I do think it takes a bit more time. And I think that's where Jolie gets confusing to people because they're like, yeah, but you did $50 million in the 4th year and you've been profitable for, almost the 15 out of 17 quarters. And I'm like, okay, that is true. I don't think you should target that. The playbook works and it will likely take a little longer but you'll have a more sustainable brand in the end. And I do think the playbook is the only one left, frankly. Like if you're not focused on brand, you're just going to have a fast up and down, likely. Even
So
if,
what is that?
assuming you could get out of the gate and generate real revenue.
Obviously, this is a super complex question and you can get into so many layers of detail, but like, what does that mean in execution? Like, let's say you're a first time founder, it's 2026, you found a product or a category that there's opportunity in your mind, whether it's newness or pricing arbitrage or disruption and innovation or something. What's the playbook? Is it press? Is it influencers? Is it affiliate? Is it TikTok shop? Like
All
from
of
your
that. Like
perspective,
this is the other thing. As much as I'm against Meta, I'd be lying if I told you we don't use it. We do use it. The
of course,
ratio of like our media mix, our marketing mix is different than everybody else's. We sort of spend 25% of our marketing on Meta, and the rest is a mix of other things.
25%.
So all of what yeah, right. And I'd like it to be 5%, frankly. And we will get there. This is where time, right? So this is where time, it's like, what are you creating? Are you trying to create a fast revenue machine in 5 years that has, you know, low single digit profit? Okay, well, that's one way. Or maybe never profit, by the way. That's more likely. Or you're trying to create a sustainable brand that's going to be, might grow slower over those 5, or then let's even talk, because now we're coming into 5 as we are literally coming into our 5th year and we're now thinking about the 10-year. What we focus on is like, how do we expand our profit profile? So that takes longer. That just takes longer. So that's how we think about it, or I think about it.
Hey, I'm Manish, and I just want to quickly give you more context on the world of Elevator. Elevator Goods is where we build our brands from the ground up, owning the product, operations, and growth. Elevator Capital is where we invest in brands worth betting on, backing founders with capital, mentorship, and connections. Elevator Talks is where we document it all, sitting down with operators who've actually done it, going deep on their frameworks, their numbers, and the decisions they made to move the needle. Elevator Creators is where we help creators build brands, leveraging their audience and turning them into a real business. The Studio is our private members club, with its first location in Hong Kong, built for founders and operators who want to be around people building at the same level. If you're building a brand and you want the systems and the playbooks to do so, you're in the right place. Check the link in bio to learn more. So last but not least, thank you so much. Please subscribe, because that will help us a ton in getting you better guests and more wisdom and more value. We really appreciate it. And back to the show.
What's the real leverage for Jolie? Is it attention? Is it retention? Is it community? Is it product? Like, where do you put the most?
I think we have a couple. Retention is definitely something that we just have the lowest churn in the history of beauty. So that's a pretty big, statement. So that's sort of our superpower, right? And we'll never master it. That's what I'm convinced at this point. Like, we try to get better all the time, but it's sort of it's just
a moving target.
It's just a forever focus, try to improve quarter over quarter. I do think we found something really novel, or at least it was, and now it won't be. I think the beauty industry overlooked the biggest source of issues that they were trying to solve in a prescriptive way. You have an issue, wear this, use that, try that.
Yeah.
The water is causing so many. Yeah. Right. And we believe that there will be, over time, everybody will use a filtering shower. I don't know if that's in the next 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, but it will be a absolutely massive market. So big that it'll be accretive to the beauty industry itself. It'll be multi-billion-dollar industry, filtering showers. And there'll be other brands, and there are other brands. And, just recently, one of our competitors got an investment from Brita, the drinking water company. And, I actually reached out to the CEO saying, congratulations.
Amazing.
Well, because I just think it's great. I think it sort of is a validation of this business and what this market is going to be. We're the number one filtering shower in the world. So I welcome other brands and competitors. it would be boring if it was just yourself, right?
Just you, yeah.
It's nice to have I like competition, so we're fine with it.
I mean, one of our brands is a bedding business. We sell pillows. And it's just funny because, I mean, if you go on Amazon and you type in pillows, you know, hundreds, thousands of pages. But I think my fundamental belief has always been like, there's room for everyone, especially when the TAM is so big, right? Like for you, everyone takes a shower, right? It's just a fact.
Yeah, and everybody sleeps at night.
Exactly. Everyone has to go to bed, whether or not robots exist and autonomous driving and everyone's now wearing Apple goggles and we're living in the Jetsons. You still got to go to bed, right? You still got to take a shower, right? So like, I've always said that you just go after the biggest TAM. Would you agree with that?
I think I don't think you have to, but I think it gives you a lot more room for failure and time and opportunity for sure. And it's you're in your business and mine it's like interesting. There's not a lot of things that you do habitually, and sleeping is definitely one of them, right? So is showering. So when you have those things baked into the behavior, and this was sort of part of our, our platform of like, what do we, shifting consumer behavior is very, very difficult. But if you have a behavior that people are doing all the time, that's an interesting space to play in.
So I ask these questions because, this is a new show and we've only put out a few episodes, but actually I've seen that a lot of our audience are younger or newer brand founders. And so I ask these questions with sort of that perspective in mind. But what would you say is a popular belief about building brands that's just like flat out wrong these days? Is it revenue chasing? Misconceptions in that sense.
I think revenue is probably the number one, right? Like everybody believes that revenue alone will solve all the problems. And it doesn't. It can if all of the unit economics are making sense and the ratio of spend making sense. But look, Allbirds just got sold for $39 million, right? And this is a company that's raised hundreds and hundreds of millions. It was valued in the billions. Their revenue was explosive. Didn't matter. Again, this is what I'm talking about. Like now it was what was that? 13 years for it to go from 0 to 0, but none of the revenue growth saved them.
That story blew my mind because $39 million. I mean, Allbirds, whoever bought that, I thought was actually pretty good buy. I mean, just for a brand.
They're liquid. The company that bought them, this is what they do. So they'll license the shit out of Allbirds.
Exactly.
You're going to be buying pencils with Allbirds on it. And like, that's a business. I get it, right? It's what they do. As brand builders, we look at that as like, God forbid, I hope that never happens because it's just not what we're all trying to build as brand builders.
I think the concept of patience is another thing that you've really mastered, and you've touched on this a little bit, but it's like, especially for Gen Z and below, it's like a generation built on instant gratification, right? You want something, you press a button, you go to Amazon, you get it the next day. With AI now, you want a document or a website, you get it immediately. Whereas prior to all of this, it was, it took time. Like you said, like building a website could have costed $100,000 and it would have taken 2 months, right? You would have had to get on a call, and every week and you check in. Some guy would be screen sharing and, you give notes, you'd screenshot, this needs to be there. And all that's done, right? And so I think the concept of patience is like, this is insane to say, but I don't think younger people know what that even means. Like it's literally, it happens so instantly. And
I think you're right. I mean, that's part of the problem.
Right. And so, I look at you and you're talking about Jolie, you're talking about building this brand, you're talking about going after the biggest showerhead competitor, 10 billion a year. I know which company you're talking about. Like it takes time, right? And building a brand takes time. And you have to be patient versus I'm seeing a lot of people just launch these like shitty products and whatever, right? Like you can scale that at a 1.5 ROAS. Maybe you clip like 10% margin at the end of the day, but you're kind of just throwing shit on the wall. And it's not really clear how long that lasts because there's no real moat, right? Like at the end of the day, there's no moat behind someone selling that same product at that same margin. if you just built it super fast, like you've established no brand, you've established no customer base. I think that's the biggest mistake that I'm seeing right now. That people don't have patience to build real value. Now, again, it doesn't matter for some people. Like I think you've also been outspoken on this. Like your goal is one day to build Jolie, sell it, have an exit, have a moment, like have an impact on the category. Whereas some of these younger, newer founders are just like trying to clip their 5% profit margin every month, rack up some Amex points and call it a day.
But when you're 25, that's okay, right? Like I'm not 25. I've been doing this for 20, 30 years, right? So like I'm in a different stage in my life and I like to build things of value, right? And those things are different. Like there's nothing wrong with building a business that you can have like a nice salary and like, that's a great thing for a 25-year-old with very few responsibilities, probably doesn't have a family. It's just a different time of their life. And over time they may shift and learn. And one other thing though, that mistake back to, because you had mentioned something that just reminded me, margin. I think it's the most misunderstood thing in e-commerce. And
tell me more.
My simple advice is always to people, like, be greedy with margin. Like you have one moment in time where you can actually define your own margin. It's before you launch. Like if you're building a thing, you're going to compete on price, right? Against the dominant player, but maybe you shouldn't think about the dominant player, because if you're trying to sell, this silicone cover, which is a generic item for an AirPod, maybe you should make the higher margin, more expensive, smaller market part, right? Like this is available on every street corner and every bodega and everywhere for $5. Maybe you sell yours for 12 and you come up with a reason that it's worth 12, right? I'm making this up as we go, but you get the point. And like you have a higher margin and therefore you don't need to take that much in the market, because you can make more with less. And this is where margin is like the great equalizer. If you have a really high margin, of which I think you need to have an e-commerce business, because if you have an e-commerce business and you even find some scale, eventually, with us, it was almost immediately, you should be in retail, because you need this balance of distribution, different margin profiles and different CAC profiles. Your acquisition costs for us, let's just use Ulta, the beauty store, is different than our direct. And when you blend it all together, it's actually better, right? Like it's a lower CAC. And that's what everybody should be focusing on. How do I get this? How do I get my product into the hands of users cheapest and fastest? I'm not saying speed isn't a valuable tool. Come up with your own metric of like what your North Star is. For us, it was first purchase profit. Like that's just how we do it, which meant slower growth. Right?
Did you have like an aha moment with the showers, with the shower heads?
You mean like how it came to be?
When I look at new products these days, there's a very particular framework: size of product, weight of product, shipping cost, ability to ship global, some lifetime value, ideally a subscription element, if it's possible. Like there's a framework. It's funny because for me, brand, it's like once you establish the product and the category, then you figure out how to build a brand around it. Is that sort of how you approach Jolie, the same way?
No, it was totally opposite. I had founded a footwear brand that I ultimately wound up selling to Steve Madden. And it was during that experience, it was the first D2C footwear brand in the world. And at the time of Allbirds, when you could put D2C on anything and you're like, I'm a D2C coffee cup maker. And like, here's $5 million.
Boom. Yeah.
And even then we didn't raise as much money as we could have, because that was just my philosophy on how to build a business. But during that time, I realized almost overnight, I was like, oh shit, D2C is not a business model. D2C is a distribution channel and it's a good one, but it is not a business model that is getting all this capital. And the reason I got to that place very early was because I saw what was happening on Meta. It went overnight from an arbitrage channel where it was essentially free to acquire customers to the most expensive part of marketing in your mix. And I was like, that was in 2014.
What's crazy on Meta is it actually still works. Like,
to some degree.
Yeah, but it's still like call it what you will. And I agree with you, by the way, but like, the pricing is the most expensive, but it's still the most gigantic customer acquisition tool. Like there has not been a second channel, maybe TikTok Shop, but even then it's not yet.
You're not wrong. It is a massive channel and user base. The issue is the cost they charge you. And because it's this black box, here's one thing that I've never not seen. The more you spend on Meta, the more you will pay for customer acquisition. Year over year, customer acquisition goes up without question. So
100%.
there's no economies of scale. It's the only channel I've ever seen where the more you spend, the worse it gets. Okay, if we know that and we agree on that, so what does year 1 look like, 5 look like, 10 years, right? They are taking away more of your margin every day. That's not something you should lean into. And unfortunately, what happens is you get to a place where you can't undo it. It would mean your revenue would be cut in half overnight.
Yeah,
and then
that
you have to
kills.
figure out how to like glide. If you're at 100,000 feet, maybe you don't crash because you get to 10 and you can finally figure it out. And that takes 2 years.
So for you guys,
yeah,
let's go back to brand. Showerhead company, right? It's not, dare I say, it's not the most like glamorous product in that sense. Like it's a utility
not
product,
sexy
right?
at all. Yeah.
So how do you build brand or community or following? Like, I know that's a very broad question, but let's just get to the like sort of like the high level of like, what is your playbook?
We have always leaned into, from before we even launched, before we had a product, we hosted an oysters and wine event, because oysters are a natural filtration for the water. One oyster can filter 50 gallons of water a day. It's an amazing. They're delicious, but it's also amazing that for aquatic life. And we sort of just said, we hosted this oysters and wine. Water is essential to each of these things, and we told everybody what we were going to be bringing to market in this like very curated culture creator community, not creator online, like actual people that move the needle in New York from art, fashion, design, because that's been our philosophy. Like these are the types of people that shape culture, right? It doesn't mean they're influencers with large followers. There's people that you never heard of that are influencing us right now, and that's always been the case. So we've relied on the analog world. I just call it the analog world because it's like a non-digital experience, in real life event. We've been doing that before we launched. We've do more of them. We're going to continue to do more of them. And I think not ironically, but now all you read about in sort of beauty and fashion is like all of these big activations that are happening and will continue to happening because somebody realized like, oh, digital only gets us so far. We need to sort of like reinvest in all these things that matter that are non-digital. Digital is like so easy, right? It's a function of capital. You hit a button, you spend it. That's not the case with like actually doing an event. Yeah, it takes planning, it takes time. Then you would ask, well, what's the ROI? All right, this is another mistake I'll get to in a second. Like, I don't know the ROI. I don't know the ROI. I have 25 trucks driving around Manhattan with this incredible ad. And here's what I can tell you. I don't measure it in a return on ad spend basis. What I do know is that every day somebody is commenting on our trucks. I don't get that from our digital ads, right? It doesn't even have that emotion. I'm not even sure we're getting it in front of the people that Meta is telling me we're getting in front of. I find it hard to believe that 3 million people can see this ad and it has a 0.03 click-through rate. Like that, again, that to me is measurement, but nobody should be applauding the Meta performance, because when even you, who are probably excellent, you're like, let's just put you in the world-class category of this. If you really thought about the number, you're like, why am I happy with this click-through rate? We think about the click-through rate, because this, like passing their eyes, is pretty worthless. It doesn't resonate. They don't have attention, like you said. So you think it's going to matter? No, if you show it to them 100 times, then eventually it might catch them and they might take an action. But think about the money you spent to get to that, right? Like it starts to, if you really break it down, it's like, whoa, this is a this has a bad outcome in the end. Every year it gets worse. The other stuff though, so playbook, real events. We're doing more and more of them. This summer we're doing more. We've always done a summer series,
Mhm.
you know, where we have a house in the Hamptons and we invite over 15 people every Saturday, 15, 20 people to do yoga. We've been doing that for every summer since we started. We'll continue to do that. We're doing something in Copenhagen this summer, right? We're not even in Copenhagen. We don't even sell in Copenhagen. Why are we doing that? Well, like I said, there's people that shape culture, art, music, fashion, design, food. We like to leverage all of that because it has this impact. It takes longer, but this is how you used to build brands pre-internet. This is how it was done. The sneaker culture, reverse buying. Before the secondary market, there were guys that would leave America, fly to Japan because there was a bunch of colors that you couldn't get in America. They'd pack them up, ship them back to America, and then sell them for 10 times more than they bought them for. That's how secondary sneakers started. Again, also pre-internet. They had a shop. You would go in there. You'd see all these colors from Nike you never even knew existed. They were only available in Japan. Then they did it in Europe. Like that is how the market started. That was a very laborious, analog way to make a living,
Yeah.
but it worked. It really worked and it made money.
This is what I was saying though about patience, like, and the instant gratification. Like you're doing the things that don't have immediate ROI, like the trucks, the events in multiple parts around the world. Like this is the biggest theme I'm seeing between experienced vets like yourself and kind of new people on the block. It's just like investing in the things that don't have instant gratification ROI, building a real mode. I was saying this earlier to someone else, but in 2026, I think there's only 3 modes in ecom. First is brand. Obviously, we just spoke about that. Second is supply chain excellence, your relationship with your supplier, your cash flow management with your supplier, your product quality. And then the third is your team, the quality of your team, the loyalty of your team, the excellence of your team. I think those are the moats, and you've clearly got that down. And so, ultimately, I think long-term thinking is like the core theme of this conversation, like big picture thinking, patience, investing where it's not obvious, swimming against the current sometimes, right? Like the meta current is so easy to swim with. Like you get into the beach, the current's going that way, you can easily just swim with it. But you're swimming sort of in the lane that everyone's going. It's very easy. Whereas you're kind of saying, hey, fuck that. I'm going to go my own way. And you've been very vocal about that, which I appreciate. And I've been following your journey. And I think that's like the crux of why I really wanted to speak with you.
Thank you. What do you think is more important? Wait, I have a question for you. Do you think revenue or profit is more important in a business? So if you had a $20 million business that had 20% EBITDA, that would be better than a $50 million business that had 5% EBITDA.
Of course.
I mean, that is not an obvious answer to many people.
Revenue, what I've learned over the last few years, revenue means nothing. At the end of the day, you don't get that money. It's not in your pocket. And even in other stages of our business, me and my co-founder, we always talk about this. Like we're just moving money around. Money comes in the door and it goes right back out. It just feels like we're like juggling cash, and it makes no sense, right? Like we're not just in business for Amex points, right? Like it has to stay in the bank account. If it's not staying in the bank account, what are you doing? You've just racked up a liability, right? And so I think it's not obvious. I think revenue is a dopamine hit. I think it's sexy, and I think it's really cool to see the numbers get so big. But at the end of the day, profit all the way, especially if you're a self-funded bootstrap and you don't have big VCs. Well, honestly, I think the trend is not to raise VC in e-commerce anymore. I think that trend, like you said, is finished. I think nowadays, if you're a brand in consumer, you're not raising at a big venture fund. You're self-funding it, or friends and family, or family office, or something much more private, so to speak. And so, yeah, I think in the future, it's all profit all the way.
Yeah. So here's where the misalignment is, because the market, the M&A market, demands a level of revenue before they will even consider anything. And that number has gotten bigger, at least in beauty. I think in every industry, frankly. So then you have to ask yourself, and this is a really important part of that founder journey. Before you launch a company, you need to ask yourself, what do I want out of this company? What do I want out of this business I'm about to build? Do I want to sell it? Do I want to kick off a 5% coupon every year and just, keep building? Am I going to build it over 5, 10, 20? Like, what's my time horizon? That'll help define what should be doing very quickly, as opposed to being on this hamster wheel that you didn't realize you were on. You need to ask those questions first.
Yeah, that's wisdom right there. I look at business the same way I look at marriage. Like, why are you getting married? What do you want out of this marriage? Literally,
Yeah.
marrying someone, it's the same thing. You have to think about, why are you doing this? What do you want for your future? To align with your partner. This is the kind of life I want to have when I'm 40, 50, 60, 70. This is what I'm expecting. What are you expecting? It's the same conversation with, your business partner and with the business planning. It's like, where do you want to go with this? And I think that is like such a rare thing that actually so few people literally do. And so, like you said, you just like do it, and then all of a sudden you've got a liability on your hands because there's so much money coming in and out the door. You've got inventory, the market's volatile. That's the other thing that I think one of the flaws of e-commerce is it's so volatile, right? Like, Trump attacks Iran. That has impact on the consumer market. Price of oil goes up. That has impact on the consumer market. People are not shopping when gas is $8 at the pump, right? And we live in a world where volatility is insane because of who's at the leadership table. They're just getting more erratic every single decade. And again, these are the things that people don't talk about, is the volatility of e-commerce. It's so volatile.
It's insane. And this is like building the businesses that you and I are building in the moment we're building them. Like, I've been through some cycles. This is crazy. Like, as an operator, you're sort of like, what next? You can't even plan for that. You can't plan for it. You have to have a worst case scenario model. That's all you can do. But then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this actually happened. Like, tariffs went from here to here to here. And then we're going to get all the money back because it's fucking illegal. It's like, okay, so now we have this surprise cash bonus coming in later. It's just crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff.
So Ryan, just to kind of wrap up the conversation, I like to do this rapid fire segment. Your gut thoughts. First one is favorite brand that's not yours.
Favorite brand any category? I mean, I have so many brands that I really admire, but let me get this right. Well, this is going to sound weird. I just think Uniqlo is like this magical brand. Here's why I think it's so amazing. It's very hard to be essentially generic. There's not a logo on most Uniqlo stuff doesn't have a logo on it, and we always associate logo and brand, right? They're heavily scaled. They do very few products. Like, at their scale, they're pretty narrow in what they make every year, and they repeat them over and over and over. To do that from Japan and then globalize it is fascinating. As a brand builder, that is a fascinating brand to me. I wear it. I have things that are 15 years old from Uniqlo. Like, literally, I have a pair of khakis that are 15 years old, and I still wear them. Like, talk about durability and like value, and I'm fascinated by Uniqlo.
It's an amazing, amazing answer. I absolutely love Uniqlo. Next one is favorite e-commerce or business community as far as cities in the world, right? I know you're from New York, now you're in London. Favorite city business community?
I moved back from California when I launched my first business, Greats. I was living in Santa Monica for a really long time in LA. And I moved back to New York specifically because I thought this belongs in New York. whatever, it was sort of a growing e-commerce community. It wasn't nearly as established as it is today. It certainly, became the brand CPG city as opposed to LA or San Francisco, which had vibrant venture markets. San Francisco obviously being one, and now LA, Silicon Valley or Digital Valley, whatever they call it, Silicon Beach. But the product brand CPG, things that you could touch, where that was all going to come out of New York. So I would have to say New York. I'm clearly biased, but New York.
Also agreed. Favorite software or tool that's changed your business?
Slack is definitely one that has changed the way our business functions, but there's a sequence of them, right? It's like Slack, any handful of AI tools that we use, but then how we integrate them into Slack. So we have all this automated reporting that's just showing up in our Slack. So again, like time management, and I sort of circle this all up, like how do we just get more efficient everywhere? Like all the things that we used to do, pull reports, do this shit, like automate everything we can. So it's a combination. I think there's Slack is one, but then there's the AI powers behind it that
basically the
provide
MCPs that pipe into Slack.
Correct. Exactly.
Most overrated founder habit?
Working 100 hours.
Most underrated founder habit?
Having, I was going to say, this is going to sound wrong. Having some balance in your life. I don't believe you can have work-life balance and create something big. I think you have to invest more in the work and not the balance part. But I do think you need to, the most undervalued is like making sure you are physically and mentally dialed in, because all of the shit we're doing is really, really hard. And if you don't invest in this machine of yourself, you won't get the best outcome. So the most underrated is sort of taking time physically and mentally for your own health.
Last two, best perk of being a founder.
Well, it depends where you are on the scale, but I would say work flexibility. There's no job in the world that I'd be able to just decide over. Being the founder of a digitally enabled business allows me to do that. So that's a pretty nice perk.
Last one, and I don't know if you're going to have an exact answer. I'm curious, but ideal revenue range or profit range in your business for maximizing for personal happiness. We just spoke about balance and having a life.
I think this is not a generic answer. I think it's different for everybody for sure. But I think if you can, I do believe like businesses should try to get to 20% EBITDA at a $50 million plus range. Like it takes time to get things right. So like up to 50 million, there's lots of things happening. There's investments that aren't returning right away. And there's brand building. And I don't know if 50 million takes 5 years, 7 years, or 2 years. But beyond that revenue range, then you should really start to be dialing in on profit improvement. And, $50 million in revenue should be enough revenue to start going past 10% EBITDA and on your way to 20. So that's how my own sort of, I guess, I'm not sure. I don't know if I define it as happiness. It's more of a goal, but it allows us to sort of like operate with clarity and think long-term.
Invest, play offense.
Invest. Exactly. Which is what we are doing and have been doing. And that's peace of mind. Profit equals peace of mind, period. When you don't have to raise, you don't have to think about it. You just sort of like, hey, I can do more, do less. Making money, the business making money and self-sustaining itself is a life-changing experience as a brand builder, as a founder.
Yeah, could not agree more. Ryan, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
That was super fun.